Hello there everybody, my name is Boomer Brown and welcome back once again to Ballymoon Castle, where today we are into the final day of spring. And just taking a quick look at the weather forecast, it is looking pretty decent for the next couple of days, with the exception of course being Monday. Now this has got me thinking that I will probably end up doing my first grass cut tomorrow, since it should be hitting its second and I think final harvest date. I'm not entirely sure, but if memory serves, we don't actually get to a third stage when it comes to grass. Now I think that even if we did, I would still want to start cutting tomorrow because the hay store that we have is in fact starting to run a little bit low. Now I mean, seasons does mean that we will need less food this time of year, so we should be okay for a while, but it's a job that I would rather kind of tackle sooner rather than later. And speaking of tackling jobs, I should also probably put those pallets away somewhere. I kind of just ended up dumping them there last night after returning the planter. Incidentally, I was right about us getting our pallet back out of the planter when we returned it, so we are not going to end up losing any money there. And I suppose that brings me neatly around to what I have planned for this morning. I am going to be taking the Fent up to the willow field, and since we have a little bit of fertilizer left in that sprayer, I am going to spread it out on the field just to try and boost productivity up there. Even though I don't really think we're going to be having any shortage of wood chips this season, especially when we do some tree felling during the winter. Now it has to be said that the last episode was a little bit slow in terms of work on our own land, and I suppose that is because we don't really have very much in the way of land for ourselves. We also don't have very much in the way of funds yet either, and there is still some equipment that I would like to get a hold of during the season, either through renting or buying outright. So I think, much like the last episode, I am going to take a bit of time out again today just to do a few contracts in the local fields. Personally, I always find contracting to be a little bit dull, but it is a great way to build a reputation with the local farmers, or in this case farmers, since there's only one on the map, which will help us when we come to buying fields. And it's also a great way of getting some cash in to keep our own farm up and running for the season. So it's something that I would kind of be foolish not to do just because I don't like it when we do actually have a little bit of downtime on our own land. Now the grassed field over here still doesn't seem to have done anything, so it's probably going to be a case that I'm not going to be mowing it tomorrow. As you can probably make out, I have attempted to fertilize it, but it wasn't showing up on the map, so I have abandoned that for now. But I will of course try again later in the season. It is a tiny field and I'm not really worried if it doesn't give us maximum yields, but I'm still going to try and do my best with it, because every little helps when it comes to feeding the animals in the winter. And I suppose so, with grass work penciled in for tomorrow, you might remember that I also bought a front mower for this tractor, and I was a little bit worried about its working with, since we have crop destruction, which is actually working on the map. It's just that it doesn't seem to show up on fields when the crops have only reached their first growth stage, which kind of had me a little confused with the oilseed rape in the last episode. So I have made a decision to return that mower and get a slightly wider one, which I will probably need to do today at some point. Other than that, I think that all we really need to do is make sure that the sheep get tended today sometime, probably towards the evening, so that we shouldn't have to look at them tomorrow until after the mowing and baling. The fields around the castle are pretty big, and since we are kind of playing on 5 times speed, I think it will, just from experience, I know that it's going to be an early start and a late finish up there. So anyway, on with the first job of today, which is of course our spraying. So I'm just going to get myself set up in the field here and start to unfold the sprayer, and of course try not to clip the gateposts on the way in. And to be honest, the rows aren't perfectly straight, but they're actually a lot better looking than I thought they were. As I say, it was quite late at night when I was doing this, both in game and in real life, so to be honest, it hasn't turned out as badly as I had expected. So just gonna line myself up here. I'm not looking for 100% coverage. If I can't get it, 2 or maybe 3 passes should be enough with this. And it seems that I may have forgotten once again to connect the PTO shaft, because I can't seem to get anything to come out of the sprayer. There we go, that is a little bit better. And so off we go, heading up the field. We're actually making a hell of a lot more progress than we were with the planter. We're up to a full 7 miles per hour with this, although I think moving a little bit slower will be a little bit easier. Incidentally, crop destruction doesn't seem to play a factor just yet in this field either. I am trying to work out whether or not I am destroying any of the saplings, but I don't seem to be. So that's always a good thing. And it seems like we do have some cloud rolling in this morning. The weather forecast has updated, and we do look like there is going to be some cloud, though there is no rain forecast, and we do look like we're going to move into some sunshine later on in the evening. So yeah, as we make our way up, you can really see just how narrow this field gets towards the top. It really is an absolutely tiny field, but it's perfectly suited to growing biofuel willow, although it may end up costing us more than we make from it when we go to hire a harvester to come up here to take it out for us. It'd be interesting actually to see how much we actually do get out of this field. I do have some other plans for it next year, probably putting some greenhouses up here and things like that, and maybe something of an orchard as well. I would also like to get hold of field number 26 over there, or at least I think it's number 26. It is one of the smaller fields on the land. It's just over there to the left. You can see the buy icon for it there. And I think it does have its own separate entrance, so we may end up making a roadway in through there rather than coming up past that person's house every time we want to visit the field. So there we go, the spraying is complete, and I'm going to refold this sprayer, and I'll probably take a look at the map to see how good our coverage has been. So the sheep seem to be doing pretty well just yet, and just going to scroll across to the map, and yeah, we can see there we are still having problems with field 19 showing up as harvested. And yeah, interestingly, the fertilizer doesn't seem to have taken on the field, which kind of worries me a little bit. We are into our first growth stage, but we may need to have waited for the next growth cycle. So it's probably a case that I've ended up wasting all of that fertilizer. Because it doesn't look from the map as though we're getting any benefit from it. Oh well, lesson learned. Always check the map to be sure that we are actually doing something with the fertilizer that we're spreading out, because of course it is dependent on the growth stage of the crop in question when you are spraying or fertilizing crops. So with my tail between my legs, I am going to head back down to the farm and see about putting away those pallets. Actually, I have to find somewhere for storing them. It may be somewhere down near the workshop, or there is another shed up towards where we keep the machinery that may be suitable for putting it in. So yeah, I'm going to head back down, and I'll catch up with you when I arrive. So back at the farm, I think I am going to drop the sprayer back over by the workshop over here. I have been thinking that perhaps it may have been something to do with the wet crops icon, though as far as I know that only relates to harvesting. You're not able to harvest the crops when they are wet. So I'm not entirely, I'm still kind of thinking that it is to do with the growth state of the crops, as for why the fertilizing didn't seem to work out for us that time, as opposed to the wet crops. Anyway, I'll keep an eye on it, and when we hit the first growth stage, or the next growth stage rather, I will attempt to spread another little bit of fertilizer up there, just to see if we can get it to work. I would like to try and get as much out of that tiny field as is possible. Okay, so on with getting those pallets into the shed. Something else that I need to get hold of pretty soon is a weight for the Massey. Those pallets in particular are actually pretty heavy, and they do tend to tip the tractor forward just a little bit. And in fact, if I'm lifting more than a bale, it does seem to cause some issues with the stability as well. So it would be worth getting a weight to try and balance things out. I think for now I'm just going to drop the Fendt in here and make my way across to the Massey and make a decision as to where I'm going to store these pallets for now. We probably also need to put a little bit of diesel into this today, because we're going to be using it quite a bit tomorrow as well. Still not entirely happy with this trailer. While it is kind of maneuverable in tight spaces just because it's articulated, it is actually pretty difficult to reverse it, and I think that it's a little bit bigger than what I need. Now, I have got a mod trailer installed that I am seriously considering purchasing. It is way more expensive than this, but it is a little bit smaller and a little bit more practical. Not entirely sure if I'm going to hold on to this trailer or not. It could be quite useful for the bales and things, so I may hold on to it for tomorrow at least. The plan is hopefully to load the bales up on this trailer, but if I don't have any time, or if I don't have enough time I should say, I will probably get one of the trailers, the stacking trailers that are available, and use that to round up the bales as quickly as possible. So yeah, I think I have made the decision that this shed is probably where I will end up storing the saplings, although it is a little bit on the large side, and it's got to be said that they're not going to take up a lot of room in here, and I should probably start using that for some of the equipment. No shortage of sheds on this main farm for storing things, so unless we start storing stuff away from the farm, it's not likely that I'm going to need to buy any sheds as placeables, at least for this season anyway. And so yeah, I'm just going to once again make use of the bale forks as pallet forks, and start moving these pallets into that shed. It's getting quite dark and cloudy now, some mist probably rolling in as well, so it's turning into a pretty gloomy morning. So I am going to speed up time a little bit and try to get this done as quickly as I possibly can, and we're going to make off and deal with some of the other jobs that we have to take care of this morning. So with the pallets squared away, just going to take a look. The stacking hasn't been great. It also seems that there's something clipping through the shed there, or something wrong with the texture. So yeah, they should be safe enough in here, while not stacked brilliantly. We should be able to make use of them again at some point, either later this season or early next season, once the ground starts to warm up. Though we may plant them as soon as we have harvested the field above, just to get a jump on next year. So now we need to put this trailer away somewhere, because more often than not I end up leaving equipment lying around and it gets in my way when I come to do something else. I'm probably going to put it down by the workshop in that open-ended shed, so that I can just pull through. So yeah, you can see that it is pretty useful when you're trying to turn it in tight corners, but as I say, trying to back it into anything, it is rather difficult. Not impossible, I would say. I have managed to do it sometimes, but it is really difficult to back these trailers up, particularly when you're using a keyboard to try and steer. I might have better luck with a steering wheel, although that is debatable. So yeah, it's actually turning into a really dark and grim morning. It's just coming up to 8 o'clock, so we have actually got quite a long day ahead of us for dealing with some contracts. So yeah, I think, yeah, this is the shed up here with the double doors on it. That's kind of very easy to park this thing in, well, relatively speaking, so long as I don't manage to clip that light with it. Yeah, just making my way in, and we're getting some sale from Metal Tech. I think they deal with trailers, interestingly enough, and we also have a great demand for wool. Now, that does raise an interesting situation, because I was saying that I was going to hold on to the wool, but a quick look at the markets has told me that wool is going to be declining in price over the rest of the season, if that is in fact this season and not just last season's figures. So it may be a case that it is going to be worthwhile in selling off a couple of pallets. So I think I'm going to go and grab some diesel and head up there and see about selling a few pallets of wool. And sell them I do. This is actually the second pallet. The first one netted us somewhere in the region of 19,000. Now this isn't a full pallet, it's only about 57%, but obviously in order to get to the full one, I had to move this one out of the way before it had a chance to fill any more. And selling it off, it gives us almost 11,000. So I suppose if it is a case that I get another decent amount in the pallet that is currently filling up at the sheep farm, I will try to sell it before the great demand ends. In the meantime though, I think I am going to head off and do some contracting up this side of the map, possibly doing some planting and fertilizing. And zipping forward once again in the morning, I make my way back to the farm, and it has to be said that my balance is looking much diminished from earlier, and that is of course because I have been repaying some of the loan. That's something that I kind of want to keep on top of if I can, so as not to be incurring those massive interest bills at the end of every night. I suppose as for what I am up to now, well, after thinking it over while working on some of the neighbouring fields, I've decided that I wanted to clear out the last bit of grain we have in store, that being the corn. Now I was planning on holding on to it just in case I got hold of some pigs later on, but in reality if I do, I probably won't end up getting that many, since I am planning on focusing on cattle later in the season, and realistically I can probably satisfy their needs by buying some pig food in. And so I have decided to take this trailer load of corn down to the transport and sell it off to see what I can get for it. And here we are now, and looking back at the footage, I should probably have come in from the other direction and made my way in through the main gate, since it's a little bit tight there, but I do manage to make the turn without knocking down the fence. So now we are looking for the grain sale point, which I don't think we've actually visited in this series, or maybe we have, I'm not entirely sure. I do know that it is around the back here inside the shed, just passing over the bale sale area there. We may have a couple of bales for sale at some point during the week. So yeah, the sale point is just in here. Noticing that there is no shortage of golden nuggets around either, and perhaps I will end up grabbing them at some point. But for now, I am only interested in selling this half trailer of edible gold that we have. So just tipping it over there and waiting to see what we get. And we get a little under 6,000, which is actually better than the money I have been getting from some of the contracting work this morning. I do think it's a little harder to make money from that on this map. But since I mostly play on this and Colborough Park, where I don't really do many missions, I can't really be sure about that. So anyway, I'm going to make my way back to some more contracting for the morning, and I still have to sort out a moor at some point. So yeah, a busy day ahead, but I should come out of it slightly better than when we came in. Now, most of the work does turn out to be the bog standard stuff, but one contract does involve a challenger, a narrow planter, and perhaps the biggest field on the map. And despite the size of the field, I still managed to crash myself into the planter. It's got to be said that I don't have a lot of time on the challenger, and it really does turn on the penny due to those tracks. But eventually I managed to get myself hooked on and connect up the PTO shaft and get ready to start sowing out some maize in a contract that I came to call the Challenger Challenge. Just looking at the time I have to complete this up in the top right is pretty insane. Now, this planter does fold out a little, so the working width isn't all that small, and I seem to have some trouble remembering the various controls, but eventually I think I get myself lined up. I managed to switch on the machine, and away I go. Now, this contract turned out to be a very laborious job, and to be honest, I was tempted to abandon it at about the halfway point, but I suppose that would have been a bit of a waste of time, and it just so happened that I did have a little bit of free time anyway. This is the kind of thing this kind of thing is one of the reasons I'm so excited about 19 releasing, because we will be able to save mid-contract and come back later. So crazy situations like this one will hopefully be a thing of the past. Now, I'm not going to force you to sit through this entire process, and I think even a time-lapse would be tedious to watch, which is why I have cut it to where I am about to finish the job off. And we end up earning another 20,000, though still no time bonus. I don't think in all the contracting work I've done on this map I've ever actually managed to get a time bonus, which has me wondering if it has been implemented or not. Anyway, there we get to have a look at some of the work that has been done around the map, some of it by myself and some of it by the AI. And I think I'm going to pick out another field to go to, which is going to be a little smaller this time. And indeed it is a smaller field, in fact one of my favourite fields on the map. We are down in field number 32, which is just next to the shop. I don't know what it is about this field, since it is quite small and the hill does make the tractor struggle just a little bit depending on what you're doing, but I just seem to like it. Perhaps it's the view or something. And yeah, as we come around here, we do have this weird and awkward little corner over here, which I always seem to struggle to plant, but I'm going to try and do my best with it anyway, just in case I start running out of time and have to scramble over here to get 100% on the progress bar. So yes, a slightly awkward field in some ways, but I still like it and have actually snapped it up for myself in other playthroughs, but not this one so far. Although it could be said that the series has only begun really, which does have me thinking that even when 19 does release and I inevitably end up playing quite a lot of it, I will probably end up coming back to this Ballymoon series. I've no idea if Ballymoon is coming to 19, and if it does, that would be a great way to continue the series, but for now I'll probably just end up putting up a video every now and then on this until I feel that it is kind of time to wrap it up. Which is probably not going to get much traction, since that's the nature of YouTube and changing trends, but I'm really not too concerned about that, since I am still enjoying myself on this map. And hey, I already have a Kerbal series running that is in the alpha version of the game, which I will probably be getting back to as well at some point, hopefully before Christmas. So anyway, on with this day's work, which is actually coming to an end right about now. I did do some other fields as well, but I ended up cutting it down to a few highlights just to save for time. So I have sorted out a mower, and that has been delivered and is ready to roll for tomorrow morning. And after a quick visit to the sheep, I decide that it is probably time to head back to the main farm and have an early night for myself, since we have to get up pretty early tomorrow for the mowing. As you can see, tomorrow is actually going to be the first day of summer as well, so sunrise should be a little bit earlier than it has been up until now. It will be something of a rush to get everything done tomorrow, but I have done it before, and I am pretty confident that I can get the job done in a single day with the help of a worker or two, though I probably will end up limiting myself to one. And so I suppose until then, I am going to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for tuning in. You have been watching Boomer Brown on YouTube, and I will see you next time.